UFC Ref Mike Beltran appears to be a member of a brutal police gang. Outside of the octagon, he works as a deputy sheriff in East Los Angeles, a department with a 50-year history of notorious gangs within law enforcement.
CBS News is taking a closer look at the lives lost to alleged gangs within the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
They're known for wrongly murdering civilians, sexually exploiting female officers, planting false evidence, and so much more.
To me, they're punks. The people that killed my sons, that executed my sons.
One of the most high-profile gangs is called Los Banditos, with its members having a tattoo of a gun-wielding skeleton wearing a sombrero. The UFC's own Mike Beltran works at the very same department and has that exact tattoo, and supposedly you only earn the tattoo through so-called chasing ink, a gang initiation that requires the person to commit a serious crime. Whistleblowers from inside the department claim this can be even murder.
There's been multiple occasions where they say, hey, we got a guy that has a gun and he's running from us. In reality, that person never had a gun.
So this is the story of how UFC referee Mike Beltran may be part of a murderous police gang. UFC fans will know Mike Beltran as one of the most prominent referees in the sport. Outside of the very main guys like Herb Dean and Mark Goddard, Beltran is probably in the next tier of good refs. He has the wild braided beard, is pretty no-nonsense inside the octagon, but appears to be a big, friendly giant when he's not officiating. But if you dig a bit deeper, it turns out Beltran has been a deputy sheriff or had other roles at the East Los Angeles Sheriff Station since 1995, and that department is synonymous with one thing: police gangs.
There are the Little Devils, Posse, the Wayside Whiteys, the 2000 Boys, the 3000 Boys, the Jump Out Boys, the Bandidos, the Executioners, the Spartans, the Cowboys, the Rattlesnakes, and the Tasmanian Devils. They have killed 19 people, all of whom were men of color, several of whom were in a mental health crisis when they were killed.
It turns out it's a part of a far wider problem. For the past 50 years and beyond, LA's sheriff stations have suffered from a deep-rooted network of internal gangs.
The government, from the county level, the state level, and the federal level, has known about this issue since the early 1990s, and no significant action, policy change has been brought forth.
They unofficially run the departments, decide who gets promotions, and effectively operate as a street gang under the shroud of being law enforcement. But despite a lot of clear evidence, they deny any such existence.
You obviously, you've had to deal with a lot of street gangs.
Right.
So then if you hear people saying, oh, there's gangs within the sheriff's department,
I say where? Show me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And there's one gang that stands out from the rest. They're called Los Banditos.
The Bandidos. The Bandidos operate mainly out of the East LA station, and their tattoo is of a skeleton wearing a sombrero with a smoking revolver and a sheriff's badge. They have a culture of working backwards, arresting or shooting civilians and coming up with probable cause later by planting and manufacturing evidence.
It's a male-only, mostly Latino gang who come out of the East Los Angeles department, and that's where the half-Mexican, half-American Mike, or his true name Miguel Beltran, has worked for over 2 decades. On paper, he's the perfect fit to become a Los Bandidos member, and while that's merely speculation, Beltran has a tattoo that implicates him as part of this gang. It's been spotted before, but recently Beltran shared an image showing off his pectoral tear, but the enormous bruise wasn't the center of attention, but instead a small tattoo on his arm. The tattoo features a sombrero-wearing skeleton and is synonymous with the Los Banditos gang. It's even likely that hiding this tattoo is the reason why Beltran is one of the only referees who opts to wear a long-sleeve shirt when officiating. And if there was any chance this was just an unfortunate coincidence, the tattoo has the 3 letters ELA at the top, a reference to the East Los Angeles department that both he and the Los Banditos gang works out of. So what do the Los Banditos actually do? And why is it so bad that Mike Beltran is associated with them? Each gang is rumored to specialize in certain illegal activities, whether it's drug trafficking or police brutality. Yet, Los Bandidos has an extra bad reputation. They're known for sexually exploiting female officers, planting false evidence, and even murdering civilians.
The sheriffs in the gangs view themselves as warriors or occupying armies against minority communities, and where one's status is enhanced by using excessive force or shootings or other forms of misconduct against community members. So it's really a serious problem.
The experience of female officers is captured within a 2015 lawsuit that involves a female trainee's account of what happened during her time with the Bandidos of the East Los Angeles Department. She began training under someone nicknamed the Godfather of East LA and was told she must call him daddy and submit to his wishes. Another officer said she needed to perform oral sex on the deputies whenever they wished, otherwise she would never pass her probation period. They physically assaulted her when she denied and made her work a misery. The Bandidos wouldn't provide her with backup, would do things like block her car while in public, send her on calls with just minutes left on her shift, and on one occasion even ran her car off the road. In the end, this case was settled with the individual receiving $1.5 million from the LA County, which is the taxpayers' money. In fact, over $36 million has been paid out in litigation just from deputy gang cases in the East LA station. But this isn't the only type of crime they're known for. Another is called working backwards, a term for when police officers arrest someone who may be innocent only to plant the evidence themselves.
We have heard that sometimes they arrest someone for no reason and then try to find a crime to accuse them of.
It's called working backwards. You make the detention first, then you figure out legally how you can make that detention.
This may be done to get people harsher sentences, covering up their own mistakes, or as a way to discriminate against certain ethnicities. One potential method would be to plant a fake gun or a real gun on the body or car of someone they had shot at as justification for their actions. This isn't just a rumor or speculation. Whistleblowers who once worked in the ELA station have flat out confirmed this in numerous investigations, of course anonymously, to protect their safety.
Hey, we got a guy that has a gun and he's running from us. In reality, that person never had a gun. And they would say, oh, it was a phantom gun. It was something that really wasn't there.
So you have personally witnessed that?
Yes.
In a couple of neighborhoods in East LA, this exact scenario has claimed to have happened on multiple occasions. So much so that a group of grieving mothers who lost their sons at the hands of deputy sheriffs have teamed up to try and fight back against those who supposedly should be defending the area.
They say that he had a gun and that he was reaching for it. And that's why they shot him 13 times. Did your son have a gun?
No. There's a story where he has a gun in front of him and they kind of put their arms around him and they felt it. There's a story that he pulled it out and that he pointed it at them. There's a story that they seen him pulling it out and that's where they shot him. All of those facts are false.
But in this specific case, there's more than what meets the eye.
The gun that deputies allege Vargas was in possession of was tested for fingerprints and DNA. According to lab reports, no latent prints were developed, and a DNA profile was not obtained from the grip, trigger, or trigger guard.
With no fingerprints found on the weapon and the Los Banditos having a murky history of planting guns on their victims, who knows what's true? In fact, many people involved believe that these violent acts are a part of gang initiation for the Los Bandidos. Because in order to be branded with the Los Banditos tattoo, sheriffs must show their commitment by engaging in serious illegal activity. It's a term they call chasing ink.
When deputies try to join the gang, it's called chasing ink, referring to the tattoo.
What does chasing ink have anything to do with being involved in shootings?
If you get involved in shootings and situations where your life is at stake, well, they respect that. And if you are chasing ink, well, you're going to look for trouble.
And doing that, looking for trouble, getting involved in shootings, will help you get into a deputy gang?
That and doing what you're told.
And just remember, UFC Ref Mike Beltran has this very same tattoo, so at some point in his policing career, it's very likely he engaged in illegal activity to be welcomed into Los Banditos and was allowed to brand his body with their symbol. There's obviously no evidence of Beltran having ever done anything illegal, but the signs are undoubtedly there. The only time he's almost been implicated was a civil lawsuit dating back to the mid-2000s against Mike Miguel Beltran, and it almost went horribly for him. The case involved an inmate at the LA County Jail named Salvador Solis. Solis was an ex-Mexican mafia member who needed protection from both current mafia members and rival gangs within prison. At the time, Beltran was working within the prison as part of the Operation Safe Jail Unit, a team dedicated to reducing prison violence and gathering intel on gang activity within the inmates. According to Solis, Beltran asked him to turn into an informant for them, and when Solis denied, he was placed directly in an area of the prison with strong gang influence. 2 weeks later, Solis was assaulted, and he claimed that one of the attackers outright said, "Beltran gave you up" during the beating. Solis ended up filing a lawsuit against Beltran. Ultimately, the case was ruled in Beltran's favor, but not without a lot of controversy. The court said that Solis's version of the events were much more credible than Mike Beltran's, but they had to side with Beltran due to a lack of evidence. And without putting on the tinfoil hat, Beltran would have been in possession of all the documentation throughout the situation, while the inmate would of course have nothing. The court actually criticized Beltran for being, quote, less than forthcoming with regard to the presentation of evidence that should have been in his immediate control. On paper, it looks like Beltran may have been guilty, and while turning a blind eye to the protection of a former Mexican mafia member in prison for first-degree murder isn't the worst crime in the world, perhaps this was his moment he earned his ink for the Los Bandidos. After all, this was just a few years after he began working at the East LA station. But this was a long time ago, and almost 30 years on, you'd hope that whatever Beltran's involvement with the Los Bandidos has now ended. So has it? Well, in 2025, Mike Beltran has a lot going on in his life. He's of course an MMA referee, just earned his BJJ black belt, and is an actor on the TV show Mayans. So with all of those, that's a lot of time commitments. Despite this, he is still an active detective at an LA Sheriff Department. But in recent years, a major spotlight has been put on the numerous police gangs.
And dozens of LA County Sheriff's deputies have been ordered to show their tattoos and be interviewed about alleged gang ties.
So it's hard to say how active these gangs are nowadays. But Beltran has his own line of merchandise, which is weird enough in enough itself, and a lot of the designs feature the Los Bandidos symbol. So maybe, just maybe, he's involved in some capacity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And what do you think? With this information, should Beltran still be able to ref UFC events?